So, I want to tell you a story that sort of correlates to the headline of these particular stories that I'm about to talk about. And in particular, it's a story about a longtime buddy of mine, high school friend. He told me one day, "Hey, you know what? I want to get rich. Now is the time to do it. 2024 is a year for me to do it." I said to him, with all bluntness and frank and all honesty. By the way, his name's not Frank. I'm saying Frank in terms of being frank about the situation. And I'm not going to tell you his name because it's really irrelevant. And plus, I'm not the type of person that really wants to put people on blast, especially if I'm cool with this person, not necessarily an op or an enemy of mine. But I thought it's important to sort of relay this message so that you can understand the story that I'm about to convey to you. So I said to him, "You're too slow. Everything that you do, everything in the way that you move, and every movement that you make, it's too slow. You think too much. You don't think ahead. On top of that, you don't strategize." And quite frankly, everything that I had criticized him about really dealt a lot more with pacing and the speed and the sense of urgency or lack of sense of urgency that he had in order for him to accomplish the type of goal that he wanted to do. Now, obviously, parts of these goals, by the way, was also podcasting, in which, by the way, as you have noticed in the last couple of days, I've been uploading, not only uploading, but also doing live streams on top of uploading when it comes to the content. And why? Because this is how you get ahead in YouTube. You build yourself up to the algorithm. On top of that, you create a presence that has a sort of a significant consistency that people can recognize and people can trust, while also building up your watch hours on YouTube, building up your resumes and catalog for the long-term investment that you are trying to make as a content creator. And then on top of that, also other business ventures that he wanted to do, I criticized him for based on the fact that he was just too slow, too chill about everything. And you know how it is in the urban and uh, the urban street community. In the most nicest way I can put it, some people do things in a very slow manner because it's just the culture that they were surrounded by. And then there are some that are absolute go-getters that get up first thing in the morning and do what they need to do. And on top of that, do it at a very relentless pace. One comes to mind, 50 Cent. The other comes to mind in the sports department, Kobe Bryant. So you're probably wondering, within the 3 minutes of me explaining this, how does this correlate with P. Diddy and Khamzat Shemaev? Well, for one, if you have noticed, late in the latest news cycle, P. Diddy has been spotted in Miami, and in particular by the Prison Channel YouTube creator Wes Watson. Ran across him in Miami and said, "Wow, this is like a movie. Life is a movie." He ran across him and couldn't believe that P. Diddy was there. I'm going to talk about that and why that may be and what is going on. But also, we're going to talk about Khamzat, why he's not able to come to the United States, and what would happen if, let's say, Donald Trump was to become the president, and how that would correlate to, let's say, Dana White speaking to him saying, "Hey, we need Khamzat to come over here so we can fight championship fights in the United States." But in particular, I think the reason why Khamzat Shemaev is not able to come to the United States is simply because of his ties to the Russian leadership, which is Ramzan Kadyrov, but is also affiliated with Vladimir Putin, to really put things in perspective into why he's not able to come to the United States. But when it comes to P. Diddy, his problem right now seems to be the opposite. It seems that he can't leave the United States. One can't come into the United States, comes out. P. Diddy can't come out of the United States from what it seems. Is that the case, though? Or is it that his lawyers are telling him, "Hey, act normal, act cordial. There's nothing that you can really do when you go out and act irrational or act out in a certain way that is going to compromise your case or somehow make you look guilty of any kind. Nothing that you're going to do is going to do you any good. So just do the right thing in terms of the right choices and emotional intelligence, live about your life, and we're going to go through the course and motion as your lawyers." So that is what's going on with P. Diddy, perhaps, because you got to think there's a lot of speculations that go into that. For one, the feds, or in this particular case, Homeland Security raided his house. So now you have to think to yourself, now that Homeland Security went and raided your house, what does that mean? Does that mean that you are guilty? Absolutely not, because there's a reason why he's still walking around in the streets. Now, what is going on? There's various reasons that you could speculate. You want my honest opinion and my honest speculation? By the way, all subjective and not objective in any way. Let me just break it down like this. Perhaps maybe that the feds may not have found anything to hold them down with, and making all this big fiasco, this media attention in which nothing really came out of it. So as a result, now they're looking to probe other aspects of his old cases, such as the Shine case, and also these other cases that we may not know about, such as the Keffe D and the Tupac case, and we don't know if that's really going to be in motion or how that's going to affect Keffe D's case coming up in the summertime, in which he's going on trial for the murder or alleged murder of Tupac Shakur back in 1996, which, by the way, is one of the most highly documented and also one of the biggest cases in the rap industry's history. But that's neither here or there. So when Khamzat Chimaev, you got to ask yourself, why is he not able to come into the United States? Well, for one, the speculation of him being friends with the dictator Ramzan Kadyrov is no speculation. It's out there in the open. You've obviously seen him hang out with him plenty of times, invited him to his home, invited him for state dinners, bought him a gift even way before Khamzat Chimaev became a world champion, for the same similar fashion that Khabib was awarded a Mercedes-Benz after he defeated Conor McGregor back in 2018. But yet Khamzat is getting all these gifts, and he's a civilian. He's not a soldier, even though there's pictures and photos of Khamzat Chimaev wearing a Chechnyan BDU. And for those of you that are not military savvy, a BDU is basically a battle dress uniform in which you wear when you are out in the battlefield. But that's neither here or there. So for whatever reason, they don't want to let Khamzat Chimaev in, and it's compromising the UFC's business. It's compromising their business because they have to force their champion to whoever that is, whether that would be at the 185 division or 170 division, no matter what division Khamzat Chimaev is competing in, and he can't fight in the United States. So that means that the champion that's going to fight for the belt against Khamzat as the number one contender has to do it in a Middle Eastern country or somewhere in Europe or in Eastern Europe, but more so in Saudi Arabia or the Emirates, which Khamzat Chimaev realistically can only fight in the confines of the UFC. So like I said, if Donald Trump was to become president, perhaps maybe Dana White can use his connection as to say, hey, you know what? Come in here, fix this up, tell him that he can go in there and fight in the United States so that we can build more economic prosperity for our sports and entertainment leisure department. Because that's primarily the motivation of the entire thing. Perhaps maybe the U.S. Treasury does not want Khamzat Chimaev to fight in the United States based on the fact that they don't want him to gain all that money and then just use it to maybe contribute to the economy of Ramzan Kadyrov and the Russian state and anyone that is the enemies of the United States or their allies, supposedly. So now with P. Diddy and Khamzat, what does all this have in common? And with the story that I had mentioned with my friend earlier, well, for one, here's something you got to do. Whether you are a good guy or whether you are a bad guy or whether you are somewhere in between with a neutral party, and whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish as a goal, you have to do it fast, swift, and with absolutely no hesitation. Just like what I just hesitated right there. You can't do that. You have to go full force in motion with whatever goals that you need to do. So how does this relate to P. Diddy and why he's still walking out in the streets? Well, for one, you're talking about a guy who is extremely proactive in terms of, let's say, how he's going to get out of things, how he's going to accomplish goals, and how he's going to get out of certain situations. He worked day and night as soon as the feds came or the Homeland Security in this case, came and raided his home and used that same energy that he used to propel himself as the top producer of the rap world and used it in a way to protect himself by getting on the phone, moving with a sense of urgency. And by the way, I want to make this very clear. I'm not here in any particular way to defend this man. If you want my honest opinion, I think he's a horrible human being. I think that everything that is coming to him, he probably deserves in more ways than one. And on top of that, I just don't agree with his, how do I say this, extracurricular lifestyle and what have you. Not at all. This is not the kind of person that I want to hang with, not the kind of person that I want to do business with, and I don't care how powerful he is. But however, you have to give respect where respect is due. And where can you possibly give respect to P. Diddy? For one, he's a cunning individual. He's very highly motivated. Not only that, he's a workhorse, and this is something that you really have to learn from him in order for you to get anywhere that you want in life. In order for you to build the image that you wish to perceive the world to look at you as, but also the type of image in which you want to change the world in, whether that would be for good, the bad, the evil, or everything in between. Now, obviously, of course, I'm going to tell you that everything I do is within good intentions and within the confines of being on the right side of history. And as such, I'm going to work my way into being able to accomplish my goals in that same similar department, using that same energy. So in other words, whether you are the good guy or whether you are the bad guy, this is what you have to do. So how does that correlate to Khamzat Chimaev? For one, you got to understand something. This is a man who trains his butt off. And I'm talking about in ways that I think is unimaginable to most people. How do I know this? For one, I'm friends with his brother on Facebook. I talk to his brother. I talk to his coaches in Sweden. I've asked them what type of training that he does. And by the way, guess what? I've implemented a lot of that training to my own personal life and my own personal health and my own personal growth in ways that I think would shock a lot of people in the workload that Khamzat Chimaev puts on, which is why he is where he's at. But it is also the reason why he has attracted the likes of Ramzan Kadyrov and why he wanted to be affiliated with him. Because he knew that having Khamzat by his side was going to be great for the marketing of Chechnya as a marketing tool, but not only that, as a sense of pride and patriotism to his country and not just Muslims around the world. So this is something very important that a lot of you have to understand. You have to work for your goals and you have to do it at a faster rate than anybody else. And when the world is up against you, whether you are on the right side of history or whether you are on the wrong side of history, you have to do whatever it takes to fight against that. You have to use whatever connections you have in order to get anywhere in life. You have to do what is abnormal in terms of what other people are just willing to do to coast by in life, whereas you have to overdrive yourself in a fast pace that nobody else is willing to go. This is the important lesson that you have to learn in order to understand these current events that are happening around you. These are the important lessons that you have to learn in order to understand the current events that are going on in your life and the personal goals that you have. But this is also, more importantly, the type of drive that you need in order for you to survive in this cold-blooded world of conflict, contrasting ideas, and people that are constantly at each other's throats. Because guess what? Here's something you got to understand about other human beings. Most human beings, they don't want to step out of line. Why? The reason why they don't want to step out of line is because they want to play friendly with everybody. They don't want to be ostracized. They don't want people to look down on them. They don't want people to criticize them. But guess what? If nobody is criticizing you and nobody is making enemies with you, then I'm sorry to tell you that you're not doing it right. Because in order to succeed, in order to get anywhere in life, you have to stomp on a few toes and you also have to ruffle a few feathers. If not, then I don't know what you're doing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been my 15 minutes of fame.